that down because we don't need to see anything. I just need to hear it.
All right. Hopefully it picks up my voice.
Okay.
Sometimes I talk a little quietly.
A little closer then. How's that? There we go.
All right.
Alrighty. So to start off with, why don't you tell me just about your occupation and what your responsibilities are there?
Sure. I'm a registered nurse. I've been working in the intensive care for about 5 years in Evanston Hospital,
Okay.
dealing with a pretty wide array of patients with different diagnoses and situational backgrounds, taking care of anything from neurologic to cardiac to medical emergency to trauma to general surgery patients.
Oh, wow.
We kind of run the gamut of the entire medical, global population.
Sure.
So, see everybody and anybody,
Yeah.
who needs, acute, intensive care.
So it's intensive care. Wow.
Right.
Wow. And so what type of responsibilities do you have? I don't know much about the field, so any insight you can offer is great.
So, being a registered nurse, you're in my role. I'm a direct bedside nurse, so we're dealing directly with patients and families, and kind of are sort of an intermediary between them and the rest of the medical team, being physicians, therapists, diagnostic technicians, and whatnot. And so we're coordinating care directly at the bedside
Sure.
for patients and families on a 24-hour continuing basis.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's great. And so, what are some things you enjoy about your role, or what do you like best about being a nurse?
Definitely, it's a wonderful occupation to help people in need. At least we try our best every time to keep the patients comfortable and well informed about what's happening with their case, and making sure that everything is done in a safe and timely manner in accordance with the plan of care.
And it sounds like you're working in the trauma ward, so I imagine that could be pretty challenging. So
It can be.
what type of challenges do you encounter, or what would you like to share in that regard?
It can be stressful to deal with patients and families who are going through some of the more difficult times in their life. You have to be honest and factual with certain situations where outcomes may not be ideal
Yeah.
for people, and so it can be hard to be a witness to that and do that on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to kind of compartmentalize these things and put that aside and just do your best to try and make sure everybody's comfortable and taken care of.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned you work with a wide array of patients. Sorry, I'm kind of soft-spoken
okay.
too, so I was
Yeah.
trying to lean in here a bit.
Yeah.
So do you ever work specifically with cancer patients, or any folks who've survived cancer themselves?
Yes, so some patients are in the intensive care because of their cancer. Other patients are there for other reasons but have cancer or are recovering from cancer. So it could be either you're directly treating their cancer or you're treating something else, but there's cancer in the background.
Yes.
With that. So we definitely see a fair amount of patients who have had either recovered from or are dealing with cancer.
Sure. And as I mentioned previously, I'm working with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. Do you ever work with any nonprofit organizations, or have you ever worked with them before specifically?
Well, our hospital is a nonprofit hospital,
Oh, okay.
so I'm employed by a nonprofit.
Sure. And so in terms of support, what type of support options do you offer in terms of, community support or, spiritual or mental health services?
Right. So all patients are, afforded a social worker.
Okay.
while they're in-house. And the social worker will be brought in to coordinate any financial, psychosocial, or counseling needs that might be needed at the time. So the nurse is tasked with making sure that the social worker is involved and is informed about each case. Also, there's a continuing care nurse who can coordinate with other facilities if patients require transfer out once they're sort of stable. If they need further treatment at like a rehab facility or an inpatient facility, they can coordinate that. We always offer spiritual chaplain services, music therapy. If there's a minor involved, we can get child services involved for child counseling. So there's always a wide array of team members available to assist patients.
You mentioned music counseling. I haven't heard of that before. How does that work exactly?
So there's a musical therapy department that can be sort of on call, but if a patient's been there a while or it seems like they're sort of fallen into a sort of kind of a rut of just day to day, you can bring in somebody who will come in and play music at the bedside for 30 to 60 minutes. They'll kind of put on a little show to kind of break up the monotony of being boarded for so long.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that before. I have heard of like therapy dogs, but music, that's really cool too.
Similar to a therapy dog, but they play music.
Sure. And so it sounds like, since you work for a nonprofit hospital, you provide a fair amount of resources in-house, but do you ever refer them externally to any type of resources or support?
That's, again, the social worker kind of will refer out, whether it's to a hospice program or a drug rehab program, homeless counseling, or other free clinic services in the community. That'll be kind of handled again by social work on their end. But it's our job to identify those patients who need those services and then get the social work involved.
Sure. So it sounds like you're on an interdisciplinary team with a social worker kind of handles that. Okay.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Multidisciplinary.
Gotcha.
And then that coordination is very involved, and it wouldn't be practical to have one person kind of deal with that. So that's why there's a separate team that we bring in to handle those issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to shift gears a little bit and talk more about the survivors themselves. And
Sure.
As you said, you had this experience as well. So speaking as someone who has gone through this process, what type of challenges did you face or do you see your patients facing after completing your treatment with cancer?
I think a big part is always the financial
Yep.
aspect. As a nurse, we don't really get involved with the financial aspect, but it's always, you can always tell it's weighing on their minds.
Yep.
Patients are always asking about how much some things will cost, is it covered, etc. So you have to be mindful of patients' financial concerns. Generally, a hospital has a financial department that can sort of arrange, different plans and exemptions for different patients who might not feel comfortable or have the means to pay for medical care. So you have to be mindful of that. Other challenges would be making sure they get the follow-up care when they leave a hospital setting, that they have access to follow-up care, whether it being outpatient visits, lab tests, things like that. So it's important to know their financial abilities,
Sure.
so that when they do leave, that they're going to be comfortable coming back to getting the follow-up treatment.
Absolutely.
Because I think a big part of the problem in this country is the patients do leave the hospital setting and they don't have the means or ability to follow up at with treatments that might not require being in-house. And it might not even be financial, it might be just physically getting a car ride or a bus ride to and from a clinic
Sure.
because either they're physically unable or don't have any means of transportation.
Sure. Yeah, it's things like that.
Right.
That's just,
So
you know,
again-
I don't even think of those type of things. Maybe the most practical elements, like getting to and from, might be a challenge if you don't have a car or if
Right.
the hospital's far away. So
Right. Or caregiver or family willing to assist.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
it's always important to get that background on their families and financial sort of abilities to kind of project where they're going to go once they leave the hospital.
Absolutely. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but what type of support options do you think survivors need? It sounds like they need a lot of help in terms of getting to and from, and knowing what treatment plans are. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that? Do you think they also need?
I think definitely financial counseling.
Okay.
A lot of cancer drugs specifically are some of the more expensive drugs. They can cost $10,000, $20,000 a
Oh,
dose.
wow.
Or a week or a month. And so, we always have to be mindful that there's going to be an ability to pay for those type of drugs, and that the patients can follow through with, making sure that they can, receive those treatments. And if they even want to, that's part of the care plan is working with the physician to seeing, how aggressively the cancer patient wants to pursue treatment, because chemo and radiation and surgery aren't always necessarily things patients want. Sometimes they want to go with a more comfort care route or just kind of let nature handle its course. So it's not always about what kind of chemo we can offer. Sometimes it's about offering comfort and a dignified kind of end-of-life type of care as well. So we have to look at both sides and see where the patients want to go, depending on specifically how aggressive and what kind of cancers they're dealing with.
Sure. And in your experience, these resources for survivors, would you say they were easily accessible in terms of the financial element? It seems like no, but could you speak a little bit more to that?
Well, we like to think they are. It's kind of hard to follow some of these patients once they leave the door.
Yep.
We certainly have a lot of resources when they're in-house and when we are dealing with them on a day-to-day basis at the bedside. But when they discharge or when they leave to either home or another facility or wherever, we're kind of passing the baton to themselves or another agency or facility. And so sometimes we say goodbye and then we don't offer much beyond what we've tried to set up for them. So it kind of the torch goes to whoever we hand it to, and so we no longer really follow them sometimes unless they are brought back in for something specific.
Sure. So the knowledge transfer makes it a little complicated.
Right. It's not like they go home and I personally will follow them there. I might arrange to have a home health nurse take over or ensure that there's family involvement or whatever needs need to be met. But I personally would not follow them through on that. I mean, only that things are set up.
Sure. Just want to make sure that's still recording.
Yeah. Start over.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Slight check-in. And then, so it seems like it's pretty complicated to track that. So
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's some frustration. I think personally, I think a lot of patients and families do get attached to care in the hospital, and they often jokingly say, "Well, can we take you home? Can we have you come in on the side?" And generally we don't do that. It's we stop at the door. I personally am an inpatient nurse, and that's kind of where the care ends.
Of course.
In the house. I'll do my best to arrange for help outside, but again, that once they step out, it becomes somebody else's responsibility to kind of take it from there.
Yeah.
And hopefully I've done my job in arranging the right agency or caregiver or family involvement to, continue that care, but not personally.
Yeah, no,
It's all about the setup.
I mean, there's so much personal elements involved.
Right.
It's not like a one-stop solution type of thing. Everyone has different needs, from what I can understand.
Right.
Whereas,
Kind of like a relay race. The baton has to go to another team member.
yeah. That's
But
a really
once the baton's left your hand, you're done.
good, sure. And so this is kind of switching gears a little bit. So, like I mentioned, our program we focus a lot on technology innovation. So, based on what we talked about, like in an ideal world, what technology or what tool do you think could help survivors meet these needs or get these resources? Like, or what type of features do you think it should have?
I think one of the best things is electronic medical records. I think that's one of the best technologies that's come out in medicine. Be able to have that chart, that history, that record follow you amongst team members provides a tremendous ability to have that record available to everybody and see what is going on in real time. I think that's been a tremendous tool. As far as diagnostic tests and medicines, I mean, those are always, changing, and there's always new ways of diagnosing things. But, I mean, technology-wise, there's always more treatments coming out.
And that's interesting. If you don't have a good medical history, it's kind of hard for people to know where to kind of pick up
Right.
when you say you passed the baton. That's really interesting. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
So having your record available to your doctors is really essential. Because, if you're getting cancer treatment.
Alrighty. And so that's all the questions that I had. Is there
Oh.
anything else like you'd like to mention, or any thoughts about your personal experience you'd like to share?
When I had cancer, I was in my early 20s and found a lump in my neck. And I remember having a lot of obstacles dealing with the insurance company and trying to get tests and approvals. And, everything was a struggle to try and get this and that sort of arranged, and just having to do endless phone calls. And I almost felt like I was begging, to get like approvals and things like that, and kind of feeling like there was dead ends. And, having to take 2 steps back in order to go forward. So there was just a lot of bureaucracy in dealing with insurance, and I really didn't have anybody to really help me through the process, since it was so foreign to me. I just kind of had to learn on my own, just kind of put up with it, and it was very frustrating. It was very difficult.
Yeah, I can
So,
imagine.
I never really stayed as an inpatient until later in my treatment, but just getting diagnosed and getting somebody to kind of take me under their wing was a challenge. Finding the right doctor. Did I need an oncologist or a ear, nose, and throat? Or I didn't know who to really turn to. So it was a lot of taking shots in the dark. Like, what do we do?
Sure.
So
That sounds hard.
yeah, and I think a lot of people deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they don't know where to go or where to turn to. A lot of times, when they get or suspect they have cancer. So it's kind of a tricky world to navigate.
I bet.
There's a lot to handle, and cancer is such a broad word. It's
Yeah.
not cancer could be one of thousands of types, in severity. So
Yeah.
there's no two cancers that are really alike.
Sure.
It's such an individual disease.
Just from my understanding, like, are there doctors that handle specific types of cancer diagnoses, or is it kind of like one, like an oncologist handles all of them? I'm just not familiar.
There are specialized oncologists. There's neuro-oncology, there's regular oncology, there's ear, nose, and throat, there's general surgeons. So there's a lot of different team members that need to kind of all come together to really make it work. So it's definitely, it's really up to people to kind of assemble their own teams sometimes, and it's, it can be challenging.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially if you don't have the right tools or insurance,
Yeah.
it can be almost impossible.
And as you say, it's the type of thing you're not going to really know how to navigate until you've gone through it.
Right.
So that makes it even harder. So I'm sorry you had to go through
Well, I was lucky. I was very lucky. I could have turned out a lot worse, for sure. A lot of red tape.
that. I bet. Well, thank you so much for sharing that,
Yeah.
answering all these questions. It's been really helpful.
Absolutely.
So that's all the questions I
That's
had.
it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it. And if you think of anything else, you have my cell phone number. But,
Okay.
And are you comfortable with me following up if I have any other questions?
Absolutely, yeah. Text or call or leave a message. I'll be happy to follow up or answer any other questions.
Great. That's been really helpful. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, it was my pleasure. Well, thank you for having me. Hopefully, you get an A+.
I hope so.